Welcome to the AI Ireland podcast, your window into the world of AI innovation on the island of Ireland. Join us as we explore how AI is harnessed to tackle both business and societal challenges, revealing the cutting-edge solutions emerging from this vibrant AI community. Don't forget to subscribe for the latest updates and insights in the world of AI. Hello everyone, it's Mark Kelly, founder of AI Ireland. I hope you're doing really well wherever you are. Today we've got Elaine Morrissey on the podcast today, and we're really happy to have Elaine here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Elaine and read out some notes that we've got. Elaine is a senior manager of privacy, assistant global DPO with ICON, a global clinical research organization. She's passionate about all things data protection, privacy, and ethical AI. And her role includes providing advice on a broad range of data protection, privacy, and AI governance issues, including frameworks, international transfers of data, vendor management, and policies and procedures. Elaine focuses on raising awareness with colleagues to leverage the safe and responsible use of data and AI to enable business growth. Elaine holds her certificate in data protection practice from the Law Society of Ireland. And Elaine is CIPPE and CIPM certified and a designated IAPP Fellow of Information Privacy, and she's a member of the Intellectual Property and Data Protection Committee of the Law Society of Ireland and is an external tutor for the Law Society of Ireland too. Elaine, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We were kind of speaking a little bit off air. What a big and exciting time to be doing your job. But oh my God, is there so many different things happening at any one time in your job as well?
Hi, Mark. Yeah, it's great to be chatting today. Yes, it's fun, but definitely can be a little bit overwhelming at times.
So today we've got a kind of a specific area that we're going to talk about, because we could probably talk about a variety of different things that could last for hours. But today we're going to be talking about AI in the employment context. So from the potential benefits, challenges, and the top tips for success. And this is something that I've got a lot of experience on, because my day-to-day working in staffing, I get to see over the last 17 years within the recruitment world how AI is playing such an important role in employment, the future of work, and all those different areas. But for much of the benefits that we're seeing from that, there's also some challenges that people need to be cognizant and aware of. If we start off with AI tools in the employment sector, and with it from kind of that kind of context, what kind of tools come to mind that you've seen or heard about that are become more and more important?
I suppose you'll know this more than anybody, but for all organizations, recruiting and screening candidates, it's an important, but it's a resource heavy activity, particularly where certain skill sets are in high demand. So, what I'm seeing at the moment is AI tools for candidate screening or CV screening. Assessment screening, so where organizations have an online assessment, or they're using AI to screen those. And then also, I suppose at the other side, then looking at retaining staff and managing or limiting turnover, we're seeing turnover leaver prediction tools also.
There's a few things that you can notice on people want to leave their job. And one of those areas is being more prevalent on LinkedIn, for example. So let's say you've really updated your LinkedIn profile, you've added in a really fancy photo, you're commenting a little bit more, and you're sharing a lot more articles. Now, that could well be part of your role. So don't get me wrong, but it also is an indication that people are actually looking to move on. And I believe there are some tools that could actually spot some of these trends as well. But just one of those kind of insights for people to think about. Some of the tools are offering certain types of benefits. What type of benefits are you seeing propping up?
So I think the benefits are you're freeing up HR resources, which is obviously significant. I think the other major benefit, you're speeding up the recruitment process. So that helps the organization, but it also keeps the candidate engaged, because we know these days, particularly where there's a short skill set, if candidates aren't reached out to quickly, if the process doesn't move along quickly, they'll go to the next employer. And I also think that it can be more fair and consistent. So there's the same approach for all and no human bias. Now, noting the challenges in that area, but that's for a whole other topic. So you can have, I think, more fairness and consistency across the recruiting, and that's where everything is working correctly. And then it was the candidate is getting the benefit of a fair process, and then the hiring company is getting the best candidate also.
Yeah. And having that kind of consistency of process, because what we do know from AI applications and consistent, results is that HR and onboarding, offboarding is one area that AI can do particularly well as customer service, sales, and marketing. And that's one area that you can do well. And when you think of the human resource professional, they're wearing so many different hats. Like at the best of times, you might think that this person focuses more on this area than that, but it's so encompassing that I feel challenging the status quo is very, very important in this because to do so much with so little time and sometimes in a global perspective, people just need a bit of a reality check about what's actually possible. But these tools do actually enable more efficiency, a better customer experience, either internal or external, but also having that kind of stream flow workflow. So from an enterprise perspective, and you can imagine if a hiring manager doesn't necessarily know how to put up a ticket, to raise a job request, to get the sign off, then to be able to once they have the job signed off, then they got the processing of those CVs and running it through. It's not like you can just go and talk to your colleague next beside you. They could be in a different location, they could be speaking a different language. So you're trying to manage all that in a straightforward process. And then once you actually get the interview process done, you've got the challenge of actually getting the documentation out to them. Sometimes it could be a couple of days, sometimes it could be a week or 2 weeks to actually get the contract. And what we know is that if that takes that long, the reality is that kind of will be off the market because they've got so many other opportunities at that time. But also, it's a reflection of what the company is like in terms of their speed.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And you're also dealing with time zones as well, I think, which can delay things. And just, I think those gaps can just lead to, I suppose, a potential gap in communication and, yeah, a candidate moving on to another employer.
So when we talk about challenges, though, there's a few different challenges, and you kind of articulated them when we were speaking off air into a few different buckets. Talk to me about some of the challenges that we have.
Yeah, so I think we've started off with talking about the benefits, but there are definitely a number of challenges in this area. So from the employment perspective, the EU AI Act classifies it as high risk AI. So there is obligations under the EU AI Act that is coming in, and this other legislation has to be considered as well. So you're looking at the GDPR and employment legislation, and then if the initiative is global, you have to consider the obligations in the relevant jurisdictions as well. Now we do have time, so it'll be circa summer 2026 before the EU AI Act will apply in the employment context. But again, all existing legislation applies. And for any tool that you're considering now, organizations need to be looking at compliance with the EU AI Act. There's no point going, oh, it doesn't comply now. I'll worry about that in 2 years. That just won't work. There is also in the legislation a number of derogations, but like any other legislation, derogations need to be narrowly interpreted. For example, if the AI is only intended to be used to perform a narrow procedural task, then that's exempt or falls outside of the legislation. But using AI, say, to screen candidates falls fully within the legislation. Now, the Act does provide that a comprehensive list of practical examples of high risk and non high risk use cases will be issued. So it'll be really important to review that list when it's issued. And hopefully it'll do what it says on the tin and provide, clear examples of high risk and non high risk in the employment context. So there might be some good news in that list. And that list is due to be issued before the summer of 2026. I think if your organization is going to use our employment context, there is very specific obligations under the legislation. And just to kind of mention a few, so you have to make sure that the AI solution is being used in accordance with the instructions. There has to be human oversight. So those tasked with this role, they must have the necessary competence, training and authority, as well as the necessary support. So it's definitely not a tick the box role, the human oversight role. Also, you'll have to inform the workers' reps and the affected workers that they will be subject to the system. So that could lead to some difficult conversations. And then also a DPIA has to be carried out as well.
Yeah, I kind of like I was referring to it yesterday as this kind of spaghetti bolognese. of like, but where do you start, right? Because I've had the pleasure of speaking to some senior people in EU who help drive this across. And don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of this regulation. It's a starting point. By no means is it perfect, but you've got like a cyber act, you've got a data act. You mentioned GDPRs. You've got all these different acts, and then you've got this regulation. So if you're a business or you're an enterprise or you're a developer and you're trying to work out how to stay on the right side of this, it is a very, very big undertaking. And then there's so many different ways that this can be split up in terms of bad actors, challenges, people trying to take advantage of this. So looking at the fit for an organization's strategy, and I was going to say AI strategy, but I suppose it's becoming their part of their whole strategy. What advice would you be sharing on that?
I think there was a big learning from GDPR. I remember because I joined Icon in 2018, and before that, I was in private practice, helping clients get ready for GDPR. And there was this, kind of fear about what do we do for GDPR? It's too much, it's overwhelming. I don't know where to start. But you go back to what your organization is actually doing. And I think, and what you're trying to achieve. So what, in that case was, what data are you actually processing? And you really need to go back to your organization. And in terms of, say, the AI that your organization is going to use, like lots of organizations will be different. Some will just want to use tools internally for efficiencies. Others are going to be trying to create tools and sell tools. So it's really looking at what your organization's strategy is. If you are purchasing any tools, they need to fit within that strategy. So you might want to look at revenue generating or return on investment. So there's no point, or your organization's unlikely to thank you if you go to huge efforts to bring in an AI tool that's, it's maybe a nice to have, but it's not actually giving you a good return on investment. The other piece is like there are a number of out of the box solutions being marketed very cleverly and at relatively low cost, and they may be brilliant solutions, but you need to be aware of maybe the cost of compliance and the impact to employees on that. So it might look like kind of like maybe buying a second-hand car. You might buy a car at a relatively good price, but then you realize that the tax and insurance is really, really high every year. So it's really thinking about the costs year on year. And Mark, in your book, you mention a lot of the AI successes, but you also talk about the AI fails. And I think it's so important for every business to plan for AI success and to scrutinize what they think might look like a quick or easy win.
Yeah, I think when organizations are looking at it, they're thinking, we're under pressure. We need to do more with less. Our competitors are using this tool, or if they're not, they're going to start to use it. But if you get the foundation right with the governance, you adhere to the regulation and you get your head around that. And I think that the way the GDPR, it's bringing me back to the day, and you would have been really on this journey more than myself. But I remember the overwhelm, but everyone got there in the end. But I think with this act, because we're still trying to find out where this frontier is going with AI, it becomes even more challenging for organizations to get it right. And then you don't want to be on the dark side of this. And if you're buying a product or a service that's using AI, and if it's not actually adhering to the act, or it should be grand scenario, you've got a major issue there. And this is where you need to step up and start to be looking back through your vertical supply chain, thinking, okay, well, we're good, but who's our suppliers? Who's their suppliers? And just being very cognizant of that kind of golden thread that they're living your values as well. And as you rightly said, nobody will thank you for taking a product or service or working on an AI project that doesn't move the key core KPIs of the business forward, because otherwise you're going to have the wouldn't it be cool snare, didn't really add much value, and then significant money is invested into that, and the only thing that does is actually drop morale and stop future projects to work on as well. When we look at education, how important is that from raising awareness, getting people on this journey? Because there's so much information out there. It's so easy to be digitally distracted. and trusting from, I suppose, an authority that what you want to feel like, actually, what, these guys have got it covered, I'm going to go with them. Or how do you start to bring that into an organization?
Yeah, you've mentioned a few things there. And I think like what we have seen across our organization is just a huge appetite for know-how and a huge appetite for our employees to know that Icon is actually all over this, and we are going to make, I suppose, AI a success in our organization. So AI is brilliant, and it's going to bring in brilliant efficiencies. We're going to see it in healthcare. We're going to see it just in our day-to-day living. But the organization's biggest asset is still their people. So if you're looking at the impact to employees and bringing employees on that journey with you, that is the key to success. And organizations will have employees using the tool. So say you've got talent acquisition or HR using the screening tool, and then people leaders as well. And then you will have candidates or employees who are potentially being impacted. So training and awareness are key, and this all feeds into people trusting the AI system and either their existing employer or potential employer. So I was relieved to see the specific reference to AI literacy in the Act, and it's something ICON have been working on for well over a year now, and it's a high priority for this year. It's not going to be the same requirement for all employees or for all companies. So companies will need to look at the gaps and see how best to fill them. Like we've posted articles and FAQs on our internet. We have a dedicated page for AI at Icon. We've hosted webinars, and we're in the process of rolling out on-demand training. So there is like a huge appetite across the organization, from everything to, I want a solution for this horrible task that's on my desk, to I found a vendor that can do this, or I just want to upskill. But employees really want to know that their organizations are not going to become an AI dinosaur, but are going to be at the, at the cutting edge of this. Um, there's one thing, like when you look at the employment context, and as a lawyer, you're always looking about what can go wrong and how to avoid that. So it's looking at the potential ramifications from an AI solution in the employment space. So you've got people who are, you know, very excited about AI tools, and then you've got people who are a bit wary and, a bit concerned as well. So there may be an increase in data subject rights requests. So there may be an increase in those and an increase in the complexity of those. There may be complaints or queries in relation to the model and the output and compliance with the legislation. So to minimize these issues, it's back to the training, awareness, and transparency piece. And the trust, transparency, literacy, I think, are mentioned about 100 times in the Act. So that speaks volumes to the focus on the legislation. So while there are specific technical obligations for high-risk systems, it's really important to bring your employees along with you on the kind of your compliance, your AI compliance journey and strategy.
Yeah, I think, Elaine, there's about 6 points I can actually follow up on. So I'm going to be trying to give the listeners just what they need at the moment, though. So what we've found is that when you talk to your employees, tell them what you're looking to try to achieve, give them a balanced view of, here's what AI is good at, here's the challenges with AI, here's some of the concerns that you're probably seeing on media. This is how we're looking to try to navigate. Here's our policy. Just so you notice that we're a policy, because we know 30% of employees now are shadow ChatGPT users to some extent. And the reality is they're probably sharing sensitive data in terms of how they're actually utilizing it. And they're getting productivity gains, some more than others. However, how they're going about it is not in line with what the company's expectations or values are. But they don't know that unless they have a policy on it, or there's some description from leadership going on that journey and explaining to them. And winning the hearts and minds of people, if you put that work in, then people feel better about the journey that they're going on. I remember last year looking at a Microsoft survey in May, and there was 31,000 people. It was global. 31,000 people across 31 countries participated. I think the stat was like 49% were concerned about their job. One of the questions came up, kind of ranking 1 to 5. And then the second question was like, how excited are you about reducing like mundane activities of your job? And it's like 99% people. So people have got this kind of twisted view of a little bit fearful, but so excited to get rid of activities that could are just wasting their time that could be done better, automated. So it's managing people through that area. But as you rightly said, people are still the most important aspect of it. But can we have that kind of co-pilot, that augmentation experience? And whoever came up with that term co-pilot is an absolute genius, because ultimately they're working together to make a better outcome or a next best decision more effective. But they have to be able to utilize these tools, but trust these tools and put them out there.
Absolutely. I think trust is key.
So, tips for implementing AI in the employment context. We've had Jared on the podcast. He gave great overview from the clinical trials area. You Implementation across AI is very, very challenging at the best of times. We know this across enterprises. Have you got tips for implementing AI in the employment context that you'd share?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and particularly what I've seen over the last kind of 6 to 12 months, is aligning with the organization's AI strategy. And I think that is so important, especially, and that strategy is not going to stay static. Nothing in AI is going to stay static, but it's what's your company's focus for the next 12 months, 24 months, and scrutinize the solution. Is this solution actually going to do what you need it to do? Um, is it going to be a return on investment? Look at the cost of compliance and then any hidden costs as well. So I think it's really important. Again, you don't want to waste resources looking at a tool that's not the right fit for your company. Um, and then reviewing existing privacy notices, so candidate privacy notice and employee privacy notices. If these haven't been updated to reflect the use of AI, they will need to be updated. So I think that's a really important step. And then simply engage with your employees. There should be no surprises in this area, and it's really about bringing your employees along with you. AI can be an absolute brilliant tool or assistant for employees. Just set your organization up for success.
Yeah. And when I was going through my research with the members from the Parliament in the EU, you know, they were saying your intentions. Like if you've got good intentions and you're talking of trust as a foundation, and maybe you have some gaps or there's we blind spots, and everybody has, every organization does too. Well, once you've shown a kind of a thread about how you've approached this, you've logged your assumptions, you're taking people on the journey, people are going to be a lot more forgiving on that, rather than either you're so just quick to market that you just want to get out there and start using it and then not being cognizant of the impact of it, or unintended consequences. That's a lot different than maybe having a kind of a slip up as well. And I think the more people go down this right approach, the more successful adoption we're going to have. And that's going to be then allowing people to have better jobs. It's going to improve the work that people do day to day. But also, I feel more people will get jobs. I feel this will be a job multiplier. And this is where, from an Ireland perspective, I think it could be a fantastic hub, because we're having that foundational trust at its core, that you can build out that kind of human-centric AI.
Absolutely. And I think the IDA came out talking about upskilling in this area and how important it is in terms of training the workforce to be able to, I suppose, adapt to the changing workforce in AI.
It's one of these areas that if we get ahead of the game and really push forward, like countries like Finland, and I even saw what recently with Singapore, it's something that will give everybody a confidence step, and then you can actually look to build there as well. But as always, I believe in digital dexterity for all, rather than just specific niches of the community. So we all have to go on this journey together. Elaine Morrissey, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you, Mark.
I'm really, really excited to unveil my new book, AI Unleashed, Navigating the AI Revolution as a Business Executive, which is now accessible to purchase on Amazon and Amazon Kindle. This publication is the fruit of half a decade's worth of meticulous research and high-level conversations with experts in the field, both in Ireland and globally. The book is particularly timely, featuring current discussions on AI governance in the European Union and North America. If you're aiming to grasp the full scope of AI, ready your enterprise for its transformative power, and utilize it to your advantage, this book is specifically crafted for you. It serves as a pragmatic guide, clarifying misconceptions and presenting real-world insights for leaders entering the AI sphere. The book covers an extensive array of subjects, from AI's role in diverse industries to generative AI applications, and provides guidance on avoiding typical missteps in AI initiatives, all supported by the most recent studies. Additionally, the book highlights case studies and applications that have earned accolades at AI awards throughout the years and emphasize top-notch AI utilization in Ireland. For executives, poly-architects, or technology aficionados seeking to make sense of the intricate world of AI Unleashed: Navigating AI Revolution is your essential handbook. So it's now available on Amazon. This book furnishes you with the expertise and instruments required to deploy AI both effectively and ethically.